So, Hinduism is bullshit. Says who? Says the leader of scientific communicators in India. Or so he thinks. Just see for yourself.
I will openly say that Hinduism is bullshit. Bullshit.
I guess it's not a surprise. In fact, it was just a matter of time, and finally, Science is Dope has taken absurdity to new heights. From misguided notions to demeaning Hinduism on a foreign channel, he is filled with hatred and only hatred. Just like every libtard out there. Brace yourselves for a lengthy video exposing his intellectual shortcomings, or should I say, void. This video will not only expose Dopu's wisdom but also counter almost every allegation made on Hinduism by Librandus. Also, at the end, I'll give you something as a relief for enduring Pranav's absurdity. So my dear subscribers, a kind soul from my audience sent me a screenshot of Science is Dope's community post. And what do we find? A video discussing Bharat and Hinduism on Harmonic Atheist channel. You'll get a dose of Dopu's unique brand of wisdom here. You might think that you already know what you will be seeing, but trust me, by the end of the video, not only your understanding will change, but also you'll know the real face of beloved Science's Dope.
Hinduism has a lot of uh, evils. So the bride is the property that's being passed over to the groom.
But before I dive into dismantling Dopu's absurdity, let me extend a polite note to Harmonic Atheist. Dear Harmonic Atheist, I'm hoping you are an ardent supporter of free speech and criticism, because oh boy, there's a lot to unravel here. Also, this video is not about you. I just want to showcase how Dopu might have pulled a fast one on you. No hard feelings, just a friendly heads up, and fingers crossed for no copyright strikes. You'll find it till end that you discussed Hinduism with someone who is a bit clueless about it. Let the game begin. So at 5 minutes 10 seconds in the video, Tim says this.
You're the first person, I believe, that I've interviewed who comes from a Hindu background, so I'd love to just hear what they were teaching you and what you thought was reality when you were a child.
And under that notion, he wanted to ask Pranav some questions regarding Hinduism. Now Pranav starts to show his knowledge about Hinduism. He tells us about sixth darshan, the Vedas, Upangas, Agam, Samrangan, Sutradhar. Who am I kidding? Like every libtard, the very first thing he mentioned was casteism. Seriously? Casteism? Watch this.
So being Hindu or growing up Hindu is different based on exactly what caste you come from. So Hinduism, unlike Abrahamic religions, has this hierarchy called caste, and people at the topmost hierarchy out of that, those people learn some scriptures which are kept away or which are restricted only to that topmost hierarchy. A lot of people, simply because of the background they're born into, face a kind of oppression where they don't have access to all this. In that way, Hinduism has a lot of evils.
Basically, Pranav tried to malign Vedic civilization, indicating that it promotes discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, and birth. Pranav, I implore you to cite a single Vedic hymn that propounds caste-based discrimination. I'm not saying that there aren't any social issues. Of course, there were and are such issues. But we have to make it sure, are they because of Vedas or Darshan? Or are they like any other social issue? For example, theft or even the habit of fooling people, which Pranav, you have a knack of. And now, let's examine Pranav's claim through the lens of Vedic mantras and Smriti references. Also, when Pranav said lower caste, he was referring to shudras. Also, casteism is not rooted in Vedas. The concept Vedas offer is Varna. Before I tell you about these things, let's see some references. I won't bore you with too much Sanskrit or even Hindi, so here Rigved 10.191.3 says that all Vedic mantras are for everyone. Every resource is for everyone, and there should not be any kind of discrimination based on birth or gender. Yajurved 18.48 suggests all four Varna should study Vedas and practice yoga, fostering love and contentment among themselves. Yajurveda 26.2 Vedas aren't owned by anyone. All, including Brahmins, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra, and even enemies, should have access to knowledge. Atharvaveda 19.32.8 promotes love and affection between all four Varna. Atharvaveda 19.62.1 Here a man prays for love of all, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now Pranav, again, can you provide a Vedic mantra supporting your claim? The The evidence here just exposes your blatant lies. You lack understanding of Varna entirely. Varna is determined by qualities, behavior and work, that is guna karma swabhava. For example, soldiers belong to Kshatriya Varna as they protect their Kshetra, that is land and people. Anyone can choose any Varna. Here are the references. Now dodge this. Manusmriti 10.65. Anyone can choose any Varna by means of obtaining adequate knowledge. Now people like Pranav who have no clue about these texts will say, that's only in these books bro. So Tim, let me tell you about one of the most renowned scholar of this land, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. He was the chairman of the committee which gave us the Indian constitution. In fact, he was one of those leaders who fought against discrimination in reality. Now let's see what he said about Varna. In castes in India, he says the four Varnas was a class system in which individuals, when qualified, could change their class. So think about it, Tim. Is casteism a problem of Vedic system or is it a societal problem which cropped up because of selfish people? Now Pranav says,
I don't belong to that hierarchy, but I do. Obviously, I've not been exposed to the Vedas and stuff.
so it makes it official that Pranav won't be able to cite any Ved mantra to substantiate his claims about Hinduism. Yet he's damn sure about Vedas without even reading those. And what do you mean by you weren't exposed to Vedas? Did you ever try to read them in the first place? Tell me, please, who will expose you to Vedas? Should the Gurukulams come to your home? Oh god, I have never been exposed to NASA. That is reserved for other people, not me. Hashtag get me into NASA, Pranav. Also, if you ever went to a Gurukul, I would like to know who stopped you. And yeah, it should be evidence based. Tim is actually a responsible guy here and asks directly.
Yeah,
Are you allowed to read them?
And Pranav now flaunts his Vedic knowledge and says,
Were you allowed to read them?
Yeah, now with the internet, of course, anyone can read that. But traditionally, familiarly, I never got access to any of those.
so Mr. Evidence based thinking, why didn't you read those before making claims on Vedas? He is saying that he had no access earlier. I mean, what kind of access do you want? Are Vedas password protected? Pranav, you conveniently blame Vedic Sanatan Dharma for societal evils of discrimination, but you are completely mixing up two separate issues. Discrimination is not rooted in Vedas, but rather in the greed that exists within every society. It's a social problem, you ignorant fool. Stop twisting the facts. Oh, sorry, you didn't give any facts to begin with. Now Pranav shows his profound wisdom again and says this.
And then, of course, the ones at the top of the hierarchy, the Brahmins, are the ones who actually get to go to the god's idol and conduct these, like, what do we call them? I can tell you the Indian word for it. They call pujas. So there's a bunch of those things that are only done by the people at the top of that hierarchy.
So I'll make it clear in two ways. Let's handle the first part. Why Brahmins are almost always the one leading pujas? For this we need to know who is a Brahmin. A Brahmin is the one who has studied Vedas formally and have certain duties to perform, which are in brief mentioned here. Bhagavad Gita 18.42. Serenity, self-restraint, control over senses, austerity, purity, forgiveness, as well as uprightness, knowledge, wisdom, and faith in God, bringing light to others even if it hurts him. These constitute the duties of Brahmins. Now, puja and rituals in temples need a person who knows Ved mantras. So, Pranav, if I put you in a temple, will you be able to lead any pujan?
The ones at the top of the hierarchy, the Brahmins, are the ones who actually get to go to the god's idol and conduct these pujas.
It's like saying that only chefs are allowed to cook in the kitchen, or only boxers are selected to fight in the ring. Now, coming to the other side, you are absolutely wrong that only Brahmin lead pujas everywhere. For example, in Indore, a city in India, there is a 1,000-year-old temple of a goddess. Here the pujaris aren't from Brahmin family but a Dalit family. Similarly, there is a 200-year-old temple in Etawah of goddess Kali. Here also the priest isn't a Brahmin. In Tirupati Mandir, recently 500 non-Brahmin pujaris have been appointed to conduct puja. A 300-year-old Satyabhama temple has Janaki ji as lead pujari and he isn't a Brahmin. Recently 54 non-Brahmins cleared test to become priest.
Brahmin pujas.
I can go on and on and on, but I assume you get the point. And Pranav, now do you realize that you have no effing idea about Sanatan Dharma, aka Hinduism? But give the devil its due. So here is a point on which Pranav is correct.
Hinduism is not exactly
अबे जल्दी बोल कल सुबह पनवेल निकलना है
a prophetic religion. It's not a prophetic religion at all.
But just when I thought maybe Pranav has finally got some sense, I witnessed this.
So it's just a bunch of beliefs and stories and traditions and rituals and cultures.
So Pranav is the self-proclaimed expert on Hinduism, who hasn't even bothered to study the Vedas or the six darshanas, the six schools of thought. But hey, that doesn't stop him from making sweeping generalizations that Hinduism is just about rituals. How impressive! Let me enlighten you, Tim. Hinduism is a vast ocean of philosophies, offering numerous ways to approach life. We have Sutra Granth, Shruti Granth, Smriti Granth and Purana. But of course, Pranav only has half-baked knowledge about the Puranas, and yet he feels entitled to make such bold statements. Aren't his arguments just brilliantly formed in your eyes? And oh, I am just dying to know from where Pranav acquired that impressive half-baked knowledge. Anyways, Tim asked him about how Hindus view God and what kind of relationship they have with God. And Pranav's brilliant response was,
What I've been told is that when I pray, my prayers are being heard and they're being listened to, and they'll be answered.
I am truly in awe of his deep understanding and insightful analysis. So, someone whispered in his ear, and suddenly he is the authority on everything. Because obviously, that's the pinnacle of
Evidence-based thinking.
Up next, he is proudly announcing that he started questioning and kept on questioning for several years.
At a point, I began questioning why exactly are any of these true? Why are they relevant to life? Why do people practice them? Several years of these rational questions and stuff eventually led me down that path.
So, Pranav, did you ever bother to seek answers? Did you even for once open those ancient texts? Did you consult any wise acharya or visit a gurukulam? Nope, you just played let's make up my own answers in your head. Is this your stellar approach to every question? Reflect on your journey, because apparently questioning is the essence of Hinduism. As Brahma Sutra says, Atthato Brahma Jigyasa, and Manusmriti suggests that without logical approach, one can never know no truth. Even Carl Sagan seems to understand it better than you.
Who knows for certain? Who shall here declare it? Whence was it born? Whence came creation? The gods are later than this world's formation. Who then can know the origins of the world? None knows whence creation arose, or whether he has or has not made it, he who surveys it from the lofty skies. Only he knows, or perhaps he knows not. These words are 3,500 years old. They're taken from the Rig Veda, a collection of early Sanskrit hymns. The most sophisticated ancient cosmological ideas came from Asia, and particularly from India. Here, there's a tradition of skeptical questioning and unself-conscious humility before the great cosmic mysteries.
Your dopu keeps dropping those Sagan quotes without a clue. It's truly enlightening. Here are just a few examples of texts that are based on question and answers. Satyarth Prakash, Vivek Chudamani, and the very famous Bhagavad Gita, even Shiva Sutra and Prashno Upanishad, to name a few. Now Pranav says this.
I thought there was something wrong with me for a long time.
Bro, you are for sure a delusional lot. There are still many things wrong with you. First try to handle your ignorance and ego. He repeats his bullshit again.
I thought I was doing something that shouldn't be done, questioning these things.
So again, listen Carl Sagan. Questioning is the essence of Hinduism.
The most sophisticated ancient cosmological ideas came from Asia, and particularly from India. Here, there's a tradition of skeptical questioning and unself-conscious humility before the great cosmic mysteries.
Now here Tim asks him a fine question.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. With the variations of Hinduism, do some of them fight aggressively to say you're all wrong, or is it very much just like a we're just exploring the best path, you would do what's right for you, you do what's right for you? Like, when does the fighting come in, if it comes in?
And Dopu says this.
Historically, there was a lot of Islamic spreading into India, and so a lot of emperors or empires were Islamic, and there's a sect, there's a group of people who believe they were oppressed by Islam,
That is a very offensive statement to make. To bring some perspective for Tim, how would Tim react if someone said some Jews believe they were oppressed for their faith? How am I supposed to react to this in a decent manner? Has this brown cucumber ever read anything on history at all? The wrath of Islamic barbarism could be gauged by the fact that to fight these forces, a whole new religion of warriors, which is now known as Sikhism, came into existence. Oh, Tim, brace yourself for a dose of reality about our self-proclaimed expert here. Mr. I am always right loves to perch himself on a high pedestal, gazing down on mere mortals like us with his freakishly massive ego. Apologies for the blunt truth, but that's the deal. Just listen him for a minute here.
but I've never seen a good enough criticism of whatever I say till date.
कितने तेजस्वी लोग हैं हमारे पास, कितने शानदार विचार रखते हैं जी.
I don't believe things I'm saying are, infallible or anything, but I've never seen anyone actually pointing out mistakes in whatever I'm saying. If someone does a good job with that, of course, I'm more than happy to acknowledge and accept my mistakes and maybe even correct them. Not maybe, definitely correct them, but I've never seen that till date.
Classic, right? I have laid out his blunders in my video on the Aryan invasion. But guess what? He is still in denial, refusing to acknowledge his epic fail even after watching that video. If I were to answer such a serious question, whether different sects of Hinduism have fights amongst them, I would have mentioned a post-doctoral research of Pandit Radha Tripathi on how the differences were settled in Indic civilization. Hint, the title of the book, that is Vad, means dialogue. Up next, Pranav vomits again.
I was curious, when you look at the idea of the afterlife and not having reincarnation, were you at a spot before where you were eagerly anticipating the next stage or evolution of your consciousness, and did you feel like that was a loss, or did you never get that deep into it?
No, I never got that deep into it. I never really thought of past lives or future afterlives. I never even thought deeply about souls and the ultimate soul. Nothing of that sort.
So let me get this straight. You didn't think, didn't study, didn't ask the right sources, never pondered, yet you are so damn sure about everything. Now here I want to give a thumbs up to Harmonic Atheist, aka Tim. He is an atheist too, and he heavily criticizes Christianity. Oh, ये नहीं कहना था. Hold on. My thumbs up isn't for that. It's for the fact that when Tim is criticizing something, he has at least studied that thing in its entirety. And it is evident when he says this.
Placed my faith in Christ when I was a little boy, rededicated my life several times, as many of us do, became very, very convicted that I wanted to live my life for the kingdom, for eternity, to share the gospel with people, to win souls. I became enamored with the idea of becoming a pastor and expounding the word of God to people.
While our lovely Dopu, who is criticizing Hinduism, says this.
The only religious exposure I've had is myths and stories have been told, and worship and going to temples and traveling for religious worship, and the world view that tends to come as a consequence of that. That's all there is to my exposure of religion.
So Dopu himself says that his exposure is limited. He doesn't know nothing. He hasn't studied Vedas, Vedangas, Sutra Granth, nothing. Yet he has, in his own mind, based on his limited exposure, made conclusions about Hinduism.
He both encouraged evidence based thinking.
Anyways, till now he was just talking rubbish about Hinduism based on his limited exposure. But now he speaks about India and tries to become the savior of democracy. He says this.
India is heading in a direction that's not very democratic. For instance, there's a lot of restrictions on free speech.
Okay, Pranav, did you show any data to substantiate your claim? In this country, most of the times targeted deities on social media platforms are deities of Hindus. The most commonly made fun of deities in movies are deities of Hindus. I challenge you to show me if similar movies and shows and social media posts are made on other faiths. I am not saying I want that to happen, but Pranav, this is a Hindu majority country, yet people so openly abuse Hindu deities. Which part of that tells you that free speech is in danger? This was literally a baseless argument, but up next, he surpassed even this and started playing victim.
And a lot more have been coming out recently. There's a new law coming where they're gonna try and limit YouTube journalism. Even the things like whatever I'm doing, there's a law coming out that might impact that. I may not be able to do my sort of criticism anymore.
At this, I would just say this.
बहुत कंफ्यूजन है, गहन कंफ्यूजन है और ये आइडियोलॉजिकल कंफ्यूजन है. कहाँ है?
एक मिनट.
एनआरसी का ड्राफ्ट कहाँ है?
हर आम गरीब
मुझे
नागरिक
ड्राफ्ट
जिसके पास
बता
उनके
दीजिए ना.
कागजात नहीं है,
ड्राफ्ट
उनको
कहाँ
दिक्कत
है
होने
एनआरसी
वाली है.
का? कहाँ है एनआरसी का
सरकार
ड्राफ्ट?
से पूछे मैम, मुझसे काहे पूछ रही हैं?
आप बता रही हैं कि डरावने प्रोविजन
सरकार
है.
बात क्यों नहीं?
आप कह रही हैं
किसने?
Hear me out.
मैम,
मेरा सवाल सुनिए.
1 सेकंड. नो मैम.
आप जिसका जन्म नहीं हुआ उसका मुंडन करवा रही हैं.
जवाबदेही मेरी नहीं है.
एनआरसी कहाँ है?
नहीं. जवाबदेही मेरी नहीं है मैम. जवाबदेही सरकार की है, क्योंकि ये बात हम नहीं लाए यहाँ पे.
सुनिए, आपने कहा कि एनआरसी में इतने डरावने प्रोविजन हैं. हाँ. तो मैं कह रही हूँ कि आप ड्राफ्ट दीजिए ना. मैं इस डिबेट को यहीं खत्म कर दूंगी. एनआरसी का ड्राफ्ट स्वरा भास्कर के पास है, जीशान आपके पास है,
असम
सिग्मान चौधरी आपके पास है.
काम नहीं है मैम.
आप मुझे ड्राफ्ट दे दीजिए.
एक मिनट.
एनपीआर के सवाल दे दीजिए. मैं डिबेट यहीं खत्म कर दूंगी.
There's a new law coming where I may not be able to do my sort of criticism anymore.
साला ये दुख का खत्म नहीं होता बे.
Next, Pranav says that Hindu nationalists try to take political power. What do you mean by take political power? Again, the term nationalists are perceived very differently in the West, and maybe Pranav is deliberately using this term trying to equate Hindus, particularly the voters of a certain party, to Nazis. I am not much into politics, but last time I checked, there is provision of elections in the largest democracy of the world, and people choose their representative. Please go ahead and tell us, what do you mean by take political power? It's more like people elect through voting, ain't it? Now Tim asks Mr. Self-proclaimed expert on Hinduism that if there is misogyny in Hinduism,
tend to have misogynistic parts to it, or is that,
and Dopu replies like this.
Separate from
Definitely.
What? Definitely? Definitely. Wait a minute. This is the same guy who said, I haven't studied Vedas. I have limited exposure. The kind of exposure. And yet he says definitely, without even checking if what he's gonna say is because of Vedic values or because of ill-minded individuals in the society. Still, let's see what he says next.
There are words being uttered where the father says that I'm passing on my property to you, to the groom. So the bride is the property that's being passed over to the groom in the wedding. There are things like that, and
okay, so women are treated like property in those words, is it? Tell me, Pranav, have you ever talked to a Sanskrit scholar about what is the meaning of those mantras which are recited during wedding ceremonies? Do you even know a single mantra out of that? Do you even know from where these mantras are taken? For Tim, let's have a look on this claim. In Rig Veda, there is a sukta which deals with marriage, and surprise, surprise, this entire sukta is attributed to a female rishi or say female sage named Surya Savitri. Let's have a look what she in the Vedas says about marriage. At 15th mantra, she indicates that husband and wife both get each other and both of them give or say donate their personal selves to each other. Property exchange, ain't it? At 26th mantra, She says after Panigraha Sanskar, that is marriage, as you won't find the word Kanyadan here, after this ritual, the husband takes the bride to his home and she will become proprietress or say queen. But as per Pranav, who doesn't know a single Vedic mantra, Kanya is the property. Anyways, moving ahead, at 43rd mantra, it is implied that both husband and wife live a long life, while everyone lives in such a way that everyone thinks of welfare of each other in the family. At 46th mantra, it is clearly mentioned that a bride should live life in a way that she becomes the Maharani, Samragi, that is empress, amongst all the in-laws. Manusmriti says only if both husband and wife are content and happy with each other, there will be prosperity in the household. Even it says father should not marry his daughter in case there aren't any good men found for her. In such case, the girl may very well live bachelor her whole life, but should never compromise on qualities of her partner. Now tell me, what kind of property has those rights? But dopu being dopu.
Evidence-based thinking?
Up next, Dopu somewhat says that widow remarriage is somehow against ideals of Hinduism or say Vedas.
And the wife, now that she's widowed, and she ideally would not be able to get remarried.
I guess this is how he mixes up things in his head and fools his audience. I am reiterating my stand here. Pranav, please try to know if any particular problem is because of Vedas, religion, or is it because of social greed or even idiocracy. But for others, let's see what Vedas say about remarriage. Rig Veda 10.18.8. Here it is implied that a widow should leave the dead and remarry. Atharva Veda 9.5.27 again emphasizes on remarriage. Okay, let's for some time leave the scriptures aside. I guess everyone knows about Kautilya's Arthashastra, a work of Mauryan time period wherein time period of Kautilya is considered to be 350 to 275 BCE. It specifically lays down provisions of remarriage for a widow. For example, if a widow is desirous of second marriage, she shall be given on the occasion of remarriage whatever either her father-in-law or her husband or both had given to her. Now, a provision in Arthashastra, which is historically considered to be a work on administration, has such provision. What does it tell us? Pranav? Come on. What does it tell us? Up next, Dopes accuses Hinduism for Sati Pratha.
There used to be a practice called Sati.
Again, a social evil, which even wasn't a widespread deal. I'm not belittling the issue, but Sati Pratha was neither Vedic nor popular. It was a cruel Pratha practiced by a very minute segment of Indian society. As per Hindu beliefs, there are 5 Satis who receive utmost reverence from Hindus. They are Sati, Sita, Savitri, Damayanti and Arundhati. Now note the word Savitri here. As per Lords, after death of her husband, she moved heaven and earth to save her husband. But as per Pranav, she must have jumped in the fire. In Ramayana, after death of Raja Dashrath, who was the father of Lord Ram, none of his 3 wives jumped into funeral pyre. In fact, when Lord Ram killed Bali, one of the enemies of his friend Sugriv, Bali's wife wanted to die. Then Lord Hanuman said this to her, "Rise, you are the empress now. Shed those tears, guide the prince and rule." Lord Ram asked to shed that grief and rise up. But no, as per Pranav, she must have jumped into the funeral pyre. The entire Indian history is full of examples like Maharani Lakshmi Bai, who fought Britishers after death of her husband. Yet Pranav tried to defame entire Hindu community for something which was not even part of Hinduism. If you want to know the truth, I would suggest that you read Padma Shri Dr. Meenakshi Jain's work, Sati, Evangelicals, Baptist, Missionaries and the Changing Colonial Discourse. Further, Pranav says this.
There are places of worship where women are not allowed to enter ever. Like women who are menstruating, like women who are after menopause and before ever menstruating is the only time they are allowed to enter this temple. While they're menstruating, they can never enter this temple. There are places like that.
Oh my god. Pranav, do you know in this country menstruation of women is itself an event of celebration? For example, Odisha, a state in India, devotes a 3-day long festival known as Rajaprabha organized by women to celebrate menstruation and womanhood. In Tamil Nadu, Manjal Nerattu Vizza is a turmeric bathing ceremony celebrated by women for 9 days. It acknowledges a girl's coming of age when she gets her first period. In Karnataka, the Ritu Shuddhi or Ritukala Samskar is the most commonly known ceremony that celebrates a girl's transition to womanhood. This is also when she receives her first sari. And do you know, Pranav, there are many temples in India where men aren't allowed to enter. Go search about it before proving your naivety everywhere. And regarding the temples where women of menstruating age aren't allowed, that is because the deity worshipped there is a celibate of highest level and people want to honor the deity. Why a few temples like that is everything you know. Now Pranav even goes on to make these two statements.
It's men who do all the pujas. You'll never see women inside doing any puja to the idols, to the gods. It's always men. It's always men who learn the Vedas, and it's always men who are, teaching the Vedas to their students, to their disciples. None of these students are ever women who get to learn the Vedas.
So let's handle the first part with some examples, shall we? Attukal Bhagavati Temple, Kerala. Kerala's Attukal Bhagavati Temple hosts a festival that is dominated by women. During Attukal Pongal, the main festival here, the temple turns into a congregation of thousands of women devotees. So much so that it made it to the Guinness Book of World Records for witnessing the single largest gathering of women for a religious activity. The 10-day festival is celebrated between February and March. Guess who must be leading the puja here? Mata Temple, Muzaffarnagar, a Shakti Sthal, much like the Kamakhya Temple in Assam, prohibits men from entering the temple premises during the time when the goddess is believed to be menstruating. During this time, the temple management also allows only women to enter the premises. Here the rules are so strictly followed that during this auspicious time, even a male priest is not allowed to enter the temple premises, and it becomes a completely women only zone. Guess who must be leading the puja here? Devi Kanya Kumari. This temple, situated in the southern region of India, strictly ensures that men are not allowed within its premises at any point of time. Here only sannyasis are allowed, that too till the gate, whereas married men are not allowed to enter the temple premises. With goddess Bhagavati as the reigning deity of the temple, it's believed to be one of the 52 Shakti Pithas. Guess who must be leading the pujas here? Kamakhya Temple. It's perhaps the most well known among the Indian temples, where men are not allowed to enter the temple premises during certain times of the year. During this time, the main door of the temple remains shut for 4 days. It is believed that the goddess menstruates during those days. On this occasion, men are not allowed to enter the temple, and only female priests or sannyasis are allowed to serve the temple during those days. Now let's handle it in a better way, I mean Shastriya way, and you will realize what women are in Hinduism. Rig Veda 1.3.11 talks about Saraswati and says she is sweet sounding, soft spoken, intellectual, and gives excellent advice, where Saraswati is used for Devi, Vani, Vidushi Stri, and even for intelligent wife as per Shatpat. Can Pranav tell us why are we seeking advice of a woman here? Rigved 10.17.7 says one seeking wisdom invokes Saraswati, divine voice. Through spiritual yajna, they expend intelligence. May she bless them with knowledge and vision. Rigveda contains a prayer in which women ask for better fortune along with gaining knowledge. Note the word knowledge, and even asks for knowledge for her daughters. So can Pranav explain why Vedas are so misogynistic? Another mantra from Yajurveda talks about bestowing intellect upon women so that those knowledgeable women create a good household. Even Rudra and Vasu, I mean gods, praise a knowledgeable woman. Oh God, so much misogyny. Rig Veda has a lot of female rishis, or say female sages, generally known as Rishikas and Brahmavadini. Here is a verse containing their names as shown in Brahadevata. So can Pranav explain this to us, that how come women can't read Vedas but can propound Vedic mantras. Further, the Brihad Devata not only contains their names but also their contribution in Vedas. Now let's visit Mahabharatam. Shalya Parv clearly mentions about a lady Siddha. She was brahmacharani, tapaswini, yogi, sadhvi, revered by all. Shalya Parv again talks about a brahmacharani named Struchavati, and she does pujan as per Shastra Vidhi. Wait, but Mr. I know everything says otherwise. Yeah? Mahabharata Shanti Parv mentions a debate between Raja Janak and Sulbha, where Sulbha is Bhikshuki, female sage knowing Yoga Dharma, knowing Vedas, and is considered an Acharya, that is teacher of Vedas in layman terms. In Mahabharata Aranya Parv, even Draupadi is referred to as Pandita and clarifies that Krishna, another name of Draupadi, was well versed in Vedas. Mahabharata Udyog Parv mentions another Vidushi named Vidula, who was famous across kingdoms and kings used to listen to her knowledge. Now let's see a few verses from the infamous Manusmriti. Here Manu says one should follow a woman and learn from her if she is better than one, and to be like that a woman should learn Vidya, Dharmacharana, Bhashan and different Shilp and sciences. And now here comes the punchline. Pranav knows what is the difference between religious problem and social problems. Watch this.
I guess the Indian culture certainly seems a little bit more used to talking about those topics. It seems like our culture is just so prudish over here. It's crazy.
It was back in those days, but today, because of culture and social prudishness, I think both our cultures or societies are very similar.
So Tim and our viewers, please tell me, what does Pranav know and what value did he add to your knowledge? I want to ask Tim and the audience, what did you learn from this conversation about Hinduism? Because it is very apparent that Pranav has no straightforward answer for any of your questions.
Evidence-based thinking.
Pranav gives the impression that he has never considered these questions before Tim posed them to him. On one hand, we have an overqualified ex-preacher, ex-Christian Tim who has renunciated Christianity after fully learning and understanding it, while on other we have an ignorant fool who has only heard stories about deities. It seems Dopu knows as much about Hinduism as I know about Shintoism after watching all these animes. And the funny fact is this. Do you know, Tim, Pranav keeps repeating like a stuck gramophone that Sadguru dodges questions and never gives straight answers.
Evidence-based thinking.
And for my audience, don't you worry, as Satyameva Jayate, Jai Shri Hari.